Welcome to another podcast episode of Om All Day, where we keep the vibes high and we really focus on bringing together the mind, body, spirit, happiness, health, and wealth. And today I get to invite a good friend of mine and a client, Paty Hernandez. Welcome, Paty.
Hola, hola, Ari. So grateful to be here. I've been wanting to be your podcast guest for a while, as long as you've had your podcast, and you've made it happen. So excited to be
Yes,
here.
yes, I know. Same thing. I've been wanting to bring you in, and we all get you're like in Peru or traveling, and we're here now, and that's what matters. So super excited
Exactly.
to have you. And before we get into it, I want to make sure that all of you who are listening know that we have some great events coming up for the Yoga Expo. We have the LA show January 11th in Pasadena, where we're also hosting our business and marketing boot camp. It's going to be an in-person and virtual training. So please check it out in the show notes. And lastly, please let me know how I can support you in this journey. Like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. All right, let's get into it. So, Paty, I call you the queen of Reiki, and all the healing modalities I've experienced you. Um, you were so like intuitive. I was like, how? Remember that one session? I was like, how did you know? And you're like, people ask me that all the time.
Like it just comes to me, that voice in the head, right?
So why don't you give us shine a little light on your journey. How was it that you went from therapy and more of the social work life to now being the creator of trauma informed Reiki?
Yes. Well, thank you. Well, I am still a therapist. I've been a therapist, licensed clinical social worker, actually for over 20 years. And though the beauty of social work is that we're always looking at the holistic side of people. And that's actually a word that in social work I learned. That's where holistic came for me, which is like the whole person, the relationships, the social aspect, the mind, the emotions, the physical, and the spiritual. The spiritual, though, is one part, an element that a lot of therapists don't talk about.
Mm.
And that's an element I wasn't really familiar with until, of course, my own journey. And that started with my sister in 2009 when she was diagnosed with cancer. And she decided to understand why she got cancer. She wanted to know what was a lesson, what she can do. And she embarked on this really alternative journey that in that time I had no idea what she was talking about most of the time. She was talking about chakras, she was talking about Louise Hay, she was talking about raw food, about green juicing. I was like, what is all of this stuff? Now it's a lot of things that I do in my day to day.
Yeah.
But now, what's really important about holistic care, either from a therapy perspective or energy healing perspective, is there's no one size fits all. So if
Mm.
somebody comes to me for one or the other, I constantly ask, well, what are they open to? What do they want support with? And the spiritual comes in as this aha or connection to energy that's bigger than any of us. So, whatever that belief is for them, my clients, the people that I work with, even for myself, that's where we start.
Okay.
And so my journey has definitely, just like with everybody, been up and down. There was a time after my sister did pass away that me and Reiki, we just took a break. I walked away from it. I didn't understand it. Because when I learned Reiki in 2010, I went with the intention of, I'm going to heal my sister. I'm going to make the cancer go away. And
Mm.
we're going to do this, and she's going to be okay.
Right.
Well, what I learned was healing is different for everybody.
Yeah.
And I know when she transitioned, even though, of course, she was really disappointed and sad that she was dying because she knew it, she was able to leave so peacefully And the last 3 days, actually, the third day before she passed away, she came out of her coma and had a spiritual encounter. And if I didn't know Reiki at the time, I thought she would have been delusional, because
Right.
that does happen to some people.
Right. Right.
But no, I knew it was a spiritual encounter because I also heard a voice. And they're like, it's okay. She's getting ready to leave. And you are in charge of telling your family. I was like, what are you talking
Wow.
about? So that opened my eyes to, yeah, a bigger piece, because in social work, we are always taught, if you hear voices, go get evaluated.
Yeah. Opposite.
Exactly. And so now when I bring my therapy and energy work together, because I do teach Reiki to social workers, to doctors, to nurses, I actually have them connect to that voice and have them distinguish, right? Is it a voice that's being helpful and kind and compassionate, or is it one that's telling them to hurt themselves?
Right.
Then we start to figure out which direction we need to go. But having that spiritual practice, whether it's with Reiki or any other modality, I believe is so important to help us stay present, to stay mindful, to stay balanced.
Yeah.
I know for me, Reiki has helped not only my professional life, but definitely my personal. Because a
Yeah.
lot of things people don't know about me is that my fight or flight response is actually fight. So when I get scared, I attack. And I know people are like, what are you talking about? I yell, I scream, I do a lot of things. But what Reiki has taught me is like, I'm able to notice it come up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start giving myself self Reiki. I tell myself, okay, let's go out of the room. And so it's just being able to bring in the modality to bring that natural part of myself to a better acceptance of like, okay, you're in that fight stage. That's okay.
Yeah.
But let's calm you so you're not interacting or affecting other people.
Yeah. Wow. I
It was a little
so
everywhere.
many things. I mean, first of all, thank you for sharing that. Part about your sister. I actually didn't know that. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's really powerful testament because, first, some people might not even know what Reiki is.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into that in a moment because there's things you hear about and it's like symbols or like hand gestures, but like I would love to get into what Reiki really is. And there's so many, the Japanese and right. So we'll get into that in a second. But one thing I love that you said that I thought was so powerful was how, now you're sharing it with doctors and with social workers. And, one of my dreams, and as I know yours as well, is that place where we integrate and we're not so separated from the hard science of medicine to the soft science of spiritual and energy work. Because if we, and I'm guessing if we're all here listen to this podcast, energy, everything is energy, everything is moving. We're made of molecules and cells and everything is moving. So we can't say, well, energy doesn't play a factor in our healing, in our uh, peace, in our movement, like in decision making. Like energy is everything. So that's really powerful that you're doing that. And I just want to commend you for, because going into the medical industry and saying, hey guys, let me teach you some Reiki, not the easiest. So that's a great feat. And I mean, how cool would it be? I know I have a pediatrician appointment with my daughter on Monday. If she was like, hey, let's like ask you beyond the, what does she eat? How tall is she? How much does she weigh? That would be, dreamy, I think, for so many parents. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing this work.
For sure. And, I'll go to that first comment in what is Reiki, because you're right. A lot of people, there's a lot of running jokes about what that is, and there's a lot of misconceptions and mistruths. So Reiki, in a general word, it's a Japanese word which means universal life energy. But I also add to it, it's a spiritual component because there's healing touch, there's energy healing. But what separates Reiki, in my opinion, from all of the other modalities is that spiritual component.
Yeah.
So every time we start, or I start with either a self Reiki or giving it to myself or giving it to a client or in a group circle, I always start with an intention of inviting our Reiki guides, our spiritual guides. Like I invite the good spirits, right? Which in the past I've been like, okay, I'm gone crazy. But the moment that I invite them in, we feel them. And people can really resonate. And that is what Reiki is, to say, I'm not doing the work. We're doing the work. We're a team. Because it's kind of like when I did the session with you, it wasn't me. I asked for support and I asked them, tell me what Ari needs to know. And
Yeah.
so they were the ones feeding me all this information. That's why I was like, I don't know. As a person, I have no idea. But as a spiritual connector, that's where I get my resources.
So
And yeah.
sorry, I don't want to mean to interrupt you. Would you say it's a little bit like working in the Akashic Records field? Because and I don't know, maybe you don't know so much of Akashic Records, but
Mhm.
I feel like it's that the same thing. Like it's source
Yes.
guiding and giving you that information.
Correct. Correct. I mean, it's all basically coming from the same space. So with the
Okay.
Akashic Records, what you're doing is you're going directly to source, to whatever that idea looks like for that person, because each person has a different library and what
Right.
it looks like for them. And they're going in with the specific, what do we need to know? What's
Mm,
this information? What's in the book of life? But with Reiki, what makes a difference is that the energy is actually coming in through us and then it
mm,
comes out of our hands. And
yeah.
so we use that energy through intention. So if I'm working with a person like I did with you virtually, I can't obviously touch you physically, but yet you still felt my energy,
Yeah.
right? Because that was intention. And I was
Right.
able to identify the specific areas that were out of balance because that's energy. And energy is, there's no time nor space. It's kind of like what happens with a lot of us when we think of a problem that happened 5 years ago. And
Right.
we go there and our brain is like, oh, we're right there. We have the same physical reactions, the same emotions, the same stuff, because our brain doesn't know time. It's like, oh, it knows emotions, which is energy in motion when we allow it to go in motion or we stay
Yeah.
stuck in
You're so awesome.
it. Thank you.
No, this is so great because nowadays, like luckily, we have so many different modalities and new things keep emerging. And at the end of the day, we have to figure out which one's the best one for us. Is it to do an Akashic record? Is it to do a Reiki? And find what really, works. But from, what you're telling me, Reiki seems like a very intelligent and complete practice that can address all sorts of scenarios, like whether it be physical, whether it be emotional, whether it be mental. Am I correct?
That is absolutely correct. And so with each level, because I teach it from like four levels. So the
Okay.
first level, I teach it from the space of self care.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when we learn modalities, and you can definitely say as a yoga teacher, you're just like, I'm going to go teach and I'm
Right.
going to just, right? But if you don't practice yoga yourself outside of the classes, kind of defeats the purpose,
Yeah.
right? And so with the first level, that's just how I teach it. Because if we don't fill our own cup and understand what's going on for us or trusting that intuition, when it comes to working with somebody else, we then get stuck in our ego. I need to
Mm,
heal them, right? Which is what happened with my sister. Like, I need to heal them. I need to help them. Like, this is why I'm here. This is my purpose. And then if something goes not according to what we think is the plan, then we start beating ourselves up. Kind of like what I did with my sister. I was like, oh, well, she died. I couldn't save her. I didn't know enough. I didn't connect, or if I got mad at her because we were just having a moment. And I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I got mad at her. She was dying, right?
Right.
But I was mad because she was dying, and I just wasn't able to process all of these emotions.
Yeah.
But if I would have been doing myself Reiki, which at that time I didn't because I wasn't taught that. I was
Yeah.
taught immediately work with others. But I didn't know, oh, I can do this to myself. So, until I finally started practicing it on myself and like, oh, well, this really is helpful.
Right. So what would you say, would be a primary reason why, if somebody's, would it be like, oh, my knee hurts, let me go do Reiki? Or would it be like, hey, I'm dealing with a lot of stress, and I know you're, the master of stress and anxiety. That's, your programs and everything. Um, but in general, I think it'd be good to know. And then I want to start getting into a little bit on trainings. Like, what do they look like? Because I call it, again, you're like the queen of Reiki, the guru, um, and how we're really focusing on that trauma informed side of things, which is so unique and so particular. So, why would somebody be like, oh, let me go get some Reiki?
Yes. Well, first of all, a person who would want to receive Reiki is someone kind of like what my sister would say. Like, why do I have that pain in my knee? Right?
Mm,
Because when the body is starting to get into a place of physical pain or discomfort, that's like its last step for you. It's just
mm,
saying, SOS, if you don't pay attention to me now, we're going to really cause problems. And so
yeah,
that is an awareness. And so when, for example, if somebody, let's say, has pain in the left knee, the left side of the body is the feminine side. So then I just start asking questions. Okay, are you having issues with a mother figure, a grandmother? Um, are you feeling inadequate as a woman? And just some of those questions, then the person's like, oh my God, how did you know? I know.
uh,
Your body is telling
got it.
me what the issue is. And then again, because of my training as over 20 years as a therapist, I can dig in deeper with the trauma related questions. Like, did something happen to you? Right. And then I can just start bringing stuff out. And the point is not to get into the trauma story, because when I'm working as an energy healer, my therapist hat is out the door. I'm working as an energy therapist.
Okay.
So we don't go into the story, but I can say, okay, this happened. Well, let's reenact the traumatic situation and have you finish off. Like, let's say if you fell and
Yeah.
hurt your knee and you didn't have time to yell or you didn't have time to cry, right? Because you're so shocked. Well, let's get that out because that's all stuck energy. And once you
Mm,
release that stuck energy or emotion, then you start to feel much better because you release that trauma.
right. Oh my God. I'm like, I need a session.
Anytime.
No, for real. When you said that, about a year and something ago, I had a like really bad fall. Maybe it was 2 years now, and I was carrying Selene, and she like went flying, and I was like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. How's my kid?
Yes.
We'll deal with that.
Yeah. But you're right. But a lot of times we hold those emotions and we're just like, oh, we moved on, right? Yes, I got into a car
Exactly.
accident. Oh, well,
Whatever.
it's
Fine.
fine. I'm fixing the car.
Yeah.
But then when you get into the car, your body starts to hyperventilate. You start getting sweaty. You're like, what's going on? Right? Now, sometimes that happens in the moment, but then there's like the crazy things that also happen in energy sessions. Like, let's say it's a past life, right? Or different lifetimes, or I mean, anything can happen. And that's what I've learned with Reiki. And that's why I've taken off. I was like, okay, even though I learned in therapy or as a social worker, it has to be this way. I'm like, no, no, no. In the spiritual world, all of that is thrown out the window, right? Because sometimes in an energy session, somebody's like, oh, I smell my grandmother's perfume. I'm like, okay, well, let's have a conversation with her. And then boom, they start to say something that they've been wanting to say to their grandmother, and then they're like, wow, I don't smell it anymore. Yep, she's left. You're able to say your goodbye, and now she's gone, right? So it's so beautiful. Though again, the reason people come to Reiki is for that spiritual connection, because they want to move past the physical pain to understand why, and then clear whatever energy is there so that they can feel better and calmer.
Okay. No, it's so great. And I'm sure, those of us who are listening, we can, like how when you said, oh, something about the pain or the fault, like you're probably getting these hits of like, ooh, undealt with. Oh, what does that mean? Right? We're asking those questions because, I mean, how do we not? We go through our lives having very powerful experiences, what maybe they don't happen on a day to day, but even like this morning, when I was sitting with my daughter, we had a beautiful conversation, and that's, I know core memory. So I guess what I want to say is that be more in tune with what you're going through, and don't, and some of you might be like me that we just say, I'm fine, everything's okay, I got it. High achiever, go goes, as society is requiring us to be, to, stay
Mm-hmm.
up to date for especially entrepreneurs. But at the end of the day, like, ask yourself the questions like, am I really fine? Is that pain in my neck? Why do I have it? And should I keep ignoring it? Probably not. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not okay, right? At the end of the day, it's not okay. Um, so ask yourself the questions, and see, what are we doing about it? And I know right now there's a lot of uncertainty, in the economic space and everything that's going on. And you might say, well, I can't afford seeing Paty one on one, right? I can't do this work. What would you say? Like, what are some things that people can maybe do, that are, self-healing techniques? I would love to share that today. And then I want to get into the trauma informed,
Yeah,
Reiki.
of course. Well, one of the things that I offer, I have a YouTube channel with meditations that you can listen to and receive the Reiki energy. There's Depending on where you live, you can search in Meetup or Eventbrite for Reiki circles or Reiki shares. And there's a lot of Reiki practitioners that offer it either by donation or it's free or there's a small nominal fee. There's definitely different ways. And what I love about Reiki circles, and I have moved away from doing them on a consistent basis, but I do offer them, is that when we're in a group, the healing is deeper and more intense. And
Mm.
people can actually see themselves in one another. They're like, oh, I just dreamt of butterflies, in the meditation. They're like, I was in a field with butterflies too. Holy crap, I think I was there with you, right? Or sometimes we just pick up like, wow, all of a sudden I got a headache. Oh, I've had a headache coming in. Right. And so then what's important is it's like, okay, it's okay. It's energy. It's going to leave. Everybody, let's drink some water. Let's set the intention of releasing it. So with Reiki, and really the best way to get into any self care practice is mindfulness or meditation. And there's tons of YouTube channels that are free. My favorite is listening to Insight Timer.
Oh,
That's
love it.
free. I know, I
Love
love that. There's people who do Reiki on there. I
it.
keep saying I want to get on there, and I just
I
haven't
was
pulled
about
the
to
plug.
ask you, why aren't you an Inside Timer? We'll work on
I
it.
know. I haven't looked into, that's on my to-do list, looking into how to become a practitioner there. So there's a lot of different ways, but one of the most important things is kind of like you just said, let's release the I'm fine, and let's
Yeah.
release like, what do I need right now?
Yeah.
Right? Do I need to connect with somebody? Do I need to listen to a meditation? Do I need to just go stand outside next to a tree? Do I need to walk around barefoot? There are so many simple things that one can do, but a lot of times, like you said, it's like, oh, what's the next activity? And
Yeah.
so, like, how can I just be present in this moment?
Yeah. No, I love that. And sometimes again, we don't, my first thing is like, oh, I need to go find a Patty, but like you just gave so many great resources um, to at least get started. Look, the number one thing I would say that I've gotten from everything you said is like be mindful of how you're feeling and don't be afraid to create time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, if you're listening, you go make some time for yourself. You know, at the end of the day, like if you're a mom, if you're a go-getter, if you're a pet owner, you're traveling a lot, you have a high high position. Like we can't be superheroes all the time. We can't fix the world. We can't not all in one day, little by little. And the more you fill your cup by listening to podcasts like this, by going into the Insight Timer, by checking out, Patty's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, wherever it is that you can create a little bit of space, that space multiplies. It multiplies into how you're feeling, into reducing stress, which will increase your productivity, into taking you out of moments of anxiety or panic and creating that, breath. I remember I was talking to one of my friends, who's also a leader, and I was like, ah, and she's like, step away. Don't work on it anymore. Step away, Ari. And I was like, I can't. And then I was like, you know what? F it. I went into my yard and I was like, hammock time. It was only 10 minutes, but I was,
Yep.
because immediately went into panic. She said, step away. And I was like, what do you mean for like a day? And I was like, no, dude, 10 minutes, just go.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, there's that famous quote, which I'm always paraphrasing it. It's like, you can't find a solution in the same place that the problem was created.
Right.
So if you're having a problem, a roadblock, brain block, whatever, leave where the problem is. Your solution is literally outside the door.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, for example, if you come up with a really great idea and you don't write it down, the moment you walk away from that space, that great idea has disappeared.
In the
But
shower.
hopefully, when you get back to the space it originated, it's like, huh, here it is. I'm back.
Oh my God, what a great conversation. Now I want to definitely touch upon the trauma informed Reiki. And I
Yes.
remember, do you remember that one time I commented and I said Reiki informed trauma? I
Yes.
still laugh at it. So I'm like, no, Ari.
Trauma first. Trauma first.
um, so you're like the pioneer of this from, our conversations. And when we talk about trauma informed,
Yes.
and because you said, I take away my therapist hat, but Reiki does work on trauma, but like what does this like way you train people, because it's a training, it's like a higher
Correct.
level. I call it the PhD, right? Like the level 3
Yes.
Reiki training. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's so fascinating that you've created that, and
Hmm.
that we're pushing out into the world together.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think it's
Which
so
I
powerful.
thankful
Like
for.
it's so powerful. So I'm like, okay, what's going on with it? Tell us more.
Yes. So the first two levels of Reiki that I teach it from what I call the trauma aware. I just
Okay.
teach people what is trauma,
Yeah.
what is stress, and how is that showing up in the body. So when we're aware of that, then we can know, oh, that's a trauma response, or I'm being triggered, or that's my fight or flight, or that's this. And that gives us permission to be like, oh, I'm just having this moment. Now I can, then what modality is going to help me? Go into the pool and have a scream fest, or go lay on the hammock, or take a shower, whatever that looks like. But then it's about you giving yourself control, because what happens, what trauma is, it's the lack of control. It's a psychological wound caused when our emotions feel like they've been hijacked, right? Because it came so sudden. We weren't able to process it all. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So then the trauma informed, when I teach it for Reiki masters, like they've already been, by then they've been practicing, they've been sharing their gifts with others, but I go much more in depth of what trauma is, what it looks like, how the body reacts to it, how energy plays a part in it, how it shows up in our clients. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a client, she's actually a Reiki student of mine. And this actually came out in a Reiki class where I was like, okay, let me practice on her so all my students could see. And I came to a part of her body and I'm like, oh, this is cold. What's going on? And then I just started getting images. And I was like, because of the nature we're in a class, I really believe you need to come back for a one-on-one. What I picked up was a trauma that she had forgotten about, but when she was sexually molested at 12 years old. And it was a frozen spot. She had no idea. So we were able to kind of bring the image back. She was able to get back control, do something to the molester, right? Like basically tell him, get away, move,
Ooh.
right? I don't want this, right? She got to use her voice. That frozen sensation, which it was affecting her sex life, it was affecting a lot of mobility, went away. And she was able to now get massages. She has a really good active sex life, like a lot of things
Yeah.
because of that one trauma response that she didn't even have any idea.
That's so crazy.
I know. And she still talks about it. She's like, oh my God, that one. And she'd been in therapy. She did all kinds of modalities, and no one picked up that one trauma that was still stuck in her body, because trauma stays in your body as a way to remember. So it doesn't happen again, to protect you.
Yeah. Right. Right. Wow. I just got all the chills.
Yeah.
All the chills. Um, wow. Okay. Whew.
So yeah, that's
So,
a typical session that can come up in
so
a different direction. Now, it's not always guaranteed that will be released in the first session, but
right.
because she had been doing so much work, it was easier to release, because that was like the last thing she needed, per se.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. I got it.
Hmm.
Um, well, I'm so excited that we were able to chat today. And like I said, you're such a wealth of information and you're just such a joy to be around. So I'm like your smiley face. And your
Yes.
butterflies.
Yes.
Patty's nickname is Mariposa, which is butterfly in Spanish. So you you get the idea.
Yes.
So
It's all about
um,
transformation all the time.
I so what I would invite you to all do is, connect with Patty. I always say this, like, please connect with the people that I interview. They're magical. They're experts in their fields. They're leaders. And if you're called to learn more about, her trainings, please, like I said, reach out to Patty. We'll put her information in the show notes. And like I said, I'm the number one like self-sabotager. So I say this with like true humility. Take the time to do the work that's going to help you feel like more energetic, more alive. And I don't know, I felt silly doing this the other day because I never even look at myself in the mirror for the most part. I'm just like, there on my day, but I was at my friend's event, my friend's birthday, and there was this big mirror, and I looked at myself and I was like, eh, you look good. But it's true, right? Like, why do
Yes.
I look? Why? Because I've been going to the gym almost every day at 6 a.m. I have my trainer, I have my therapist, right? I'll do a session with a Paty. I do the things. I do what I love. I have a beautiful family, I have a beautiful community. And I was like, of course, how would I not look good? How would I
Hmm.
not feel good? And I'm not saying I feel great all
Hmm.
the time. There's ups and downs, but like, this is why, guys, this is why Paty and I do what we do, because we want everybody to optimize their being. I want, I do it through obviously self-development and through business. Paty does it through energy and through, giving people the skills through her trainings. But like, what would it look like if we were all like, I want us to imagine this for a second, right? Like, if, let's say, 10% more of the planet lived in happiness and feeling good, got out of chronic pain, got out of chronic stress, what would this world look like? Just
Hmm.
10%. It would be magic. So, right, take the time, dig into yourself, do the scary things. A scary thing might be going to a Reiki circle with a bunch of people you don't know.
Hmm.
So that's my soapbox for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Paty. I love you so much. I can't wait to see you again.
Yes.
And please, like I said, check the show notes, follow her, connect with Paty, connect with me. I have a Facebook group called the Conscious Women Entrepreneurs. We recently launched a powerful business management software and marketing called Arise. So if you're interested in any of these things, also reach out to me. And we have an awesome new workshop that I released called Workshops for Clients. So I'll be sharing that, but everything's on my website. All right. Have a great day. Bye.